women who are presented to us today. As I said before the Mass, today is the feast day of our Blessed Mother in her title as the Assumed Lady. And now there is this other woman. She was not even a Jew. She was a Greek, a Syrophoenician. In other words, if you were looking at this context from the eyes of people at that time, first century Palestine, this was an enemy. Because that word enemy that you hear in the Gospels does not only refer to somebody who has harmed you or who hates you. In a more general sense, at that time, the word enemy refers to whoever you think is different from you. And so, for the Jews, the enemy would be the Greeks, the Syrophoenician, the Samaritans, even if the Jews and the Samaritans have a common ancestry. But they thought, or in their mind, in their culture, in the way that they were thinking at that time, they were different from them. They were enemies. And Jesus said, love God above all things. Love your neighbor. The neighbor is the one who belongs to your tribe. And then he calls also, love your enemy. Love the one who is different from you. These two women, Mary and this Syrophoenician woman, they represent to us what we could and what we should be. In the sense and very sense that they broke the borders of religion, ethnicities, and even worship. Think about that. Two women. Mary, when she was presented to become the mother of Jesus, if you look again at that this morning, right, when we had the feast day of the Assumption, and we also read about Mary. If you go back to the gospel when the angel came to Mary and presented to her God's will for her, which is to be the mother of Jesus, Mary did not concede to that immediately. When we are looking at prayer cards and beautiful images of the Annunciation, you see a very coy woman. As if at the first time that the angel said, Mary, you are going to be the mother, she felt just so surrendered to that. Now, if you look again at the gospel, you see a young lady, she was 14 at that time, who was arguing with the angel. Her first argument was, how can this be? She was only 14, remember that? I don't even have a boyfriend. And the angel started to argue with her, but Mary, look, even your cousin, Elizabeth, who was thought to be a barren, is already on her 6th month. And Mary would not give in to that. Go back to the gospel and read it in that sense, which is really the original intent of that story. But then the angel said, "But Mary, there is nothing impossible with God." And at that time, it is as if Mary took her heart and broke it apart for the sake of God. There was an internal grief in her because that required for her to die to her ego, to allow all her dreams to just be dashed away for the sake of God. That's Mary for you. Now, look at this other woman. So she was pleading not for herself, she was pleading for her daughter who was sick. You mothers here, you know what that is. When you have to plead with a doctor, with a caregiver, with God, to heal your child. That child was dying. And look what's happening here. The apostles were telling Jesus, whom they had seen in Galilee, among their own people, healing, feeding, and doing all this magnificent charity. What did they say to Jesus? Send her away, because she is just bothering us. It's so easy to say that, for them to say that. Send her away. She is not like us. And Jesus comes and says to woman, it is not good for me to give the food for the children, meaning for the Jews, for my own people, to dogs. Because in Palestine, first century, anybody who was not Jew, the enemy, is a dog. It's just a good thing that in Greek, the word dog there is the pet. At least there is some little, let's say, softness to it, and not just the mere dog who was always in the streets. So Matthew uses a different word for dog in this sense. It's as if Jesus was saying, it is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the pets, the pet dog. And still, she said, but Lord, please, even the dogs, and this time Matthew uses another word for the dog in the streets. But Lord, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters. A mother whose heart is broken for her daughter who was dying, suddenly, if you can see the context here, suddenly rose out of probably even her own shame even the mockery of people around, just because the daughter is dying. And she rose to that by giving up her own ego to say to Jesus, whom she was pleading at first to cure the daughter, and said, but even the dogs, they eat the scraps that fall from the table of the master. That's a very direct confrontation from a woman to Jesus. This is the first time that this has happened in the life of Christ. That a woman who is not even Jewish was confronting Jesus. And all that Jesus could do after that, he lost the argument, you see. And he said, oh woman, your faith is just so great. Do you know that what happened after this incident? So Jesus was saying, I was sent only to the people of Israel, to my fellow Jews. That's what Jesus, even at this time, was also saying. But after this event, you will begin to see that Jesus now started to go and minister and preach and heal even into the non-Jewish, to the Gentile world. It took a woman who is not even a Jew to convert, so to speak, the mission for Jesus. I'm talking to you now, Filipinos who are here like me, immigrants like me. We broke, and all other immigrants, we also broke borders. We had to leave families behind. We had to take the challenges of being strangers in a land. And we take the pains of leaving our own securities. But remember this always, that even in that ache and pain, you have also confronted the mercies of God. And you have held yourselves high so that you continue to be of service to all people in a foreign land. Because that is what we have been chosen and appointed to be and to do. It's a wonderful calling, isn't it? To serve even those not like us, and to give up ourselves because God was the one who appointed us. It was not you who made just the decision to come here. It was God. And God brought you and me to come to any land He will bring us, now here and probably tomorrow, we do not know where. But to go there and become always the presence of God. Love, compassion, forgiveness, endurance, resilience. All of that ultimately must be offered to God. And when you and I do this full-heartedly, we are doing it for God. So continue to do what God has asked you to do and to be. Be like Mary. Be like this Syrophoenician woman, and be like Christ.